Man, we're gonna say what's going on to everyone out there, man. We are excited about being here today. Man, this has been a really live experience, and just everything that is going forth, man. It's just, I'm telling you, so we have a special episode today, and we are expecting, man, just a great time with everyone. Just being able to just be back with you all today, fellas. What's going on today? How you doing today?
Doing good, my brother.
Doing
Man,
good.
you forgive us, man. We had some technical difficulties this morning. I'm telling
I
you,
think we
boy.
back, Joe. I think we back.
That's all that matters, ain't that right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, man. So what's been going on, T. Patrick? What's happening with you?
Man, I'm still wasting away, right? So you know what I mean? Hey, I am close to my next benchmark. I am
All
right
right.
at 226, and my benchmark is 223. So hey, I'm excited about that. I struggled around that 230 mark, man. That weight just didn't want to come off. It was just holding on like I had the bear hug going. But I finally shook it. So I'm excited about that.
You
That's
got that
it,
St. Louis
man.
summer heat that's gonna help you melt it off too.
I'm with all of that. I receive it. I receive it, Tony. I'm telling you. Hey, just melt it away. It'll make it easier for me.
Just go for a walk, man.
Yeah, I've been
It's in
hitting it.
it's in them 90s.
Man, I done water. I gotta find some new walking shoes. I didn't walk the soles off my other pair, my old trusty reliables. So
That's a good thing.
That's it. That's it. What's going on with you, T Bird? What's happening, man?
I'm doing well, man. Just trying to enjoy the summer. Throwing some good vibes out. My daughter, she's taking the MCAT today, so hope she'll knock that out. And then my daddy duty, I was up this morning steaming my youngest daughter's dance outfits, not outfit, outfits. And I'll be sitting in some dance recitals today. So that's my Saturday.
That's it. What kind of dance does she do?
She does lyrical, tap, performance, pretty much all of it.
Okay, all right, cool, man. I'm telling you,
My
man, I
little
can't tell
dancer.
you, man, how exciting, man, it is just to see you fellas again. I mean, I've been in this whole transition. My wife and I, we moved from one area in Illinois. Now we're up in the northeast corner of Missouri at Truman State, and just excited, man. It's an exciting time, but still just kind of, moving is not easy, it's not fun. So, and you don't realize just how much stuff that you accumulated, because I got rid of a lot of stuff 2 years ago, and it seems like now I got even more stuff. So it's like transitioning. I'm gonna tell everybody now, I'm gonna put it out there, that whole U-Box system for U-Haul, and don't even and they can call me and I can give them a real commercial, because it doesn't go everywhere. And so they have possession of our stuff. And then all of a sudden they say, well, we don't deliver to the area where what do you mean you would deliver? The lady said this, that, and other. So shout out to the general manager, the owner of the Springfield, Illinois location, because man, he stepped in, he made sure that my stuff got there, did not charge us. No, and he handled the delivery fee, he took it on himself. So great customer service. Can't ask for anything greater than that. But the system itself is just everywhere. So, if you're considering moving, and if you can, I would say it's probably best that you would just do it on your own, figure it out on your own, unless it's a major city where individuals where they have the type of capabilities that you need. So, but shout out to the owner of the Springfield, Illinois location, man. Hey, fellas, this is the weekend of Father's Day, and we celebrating fathers all over the United States, and basically all over the world. We have to remember that. And here in the Western, in the U.S., we celebrate some things that people don't even recognize throughout the rest of the world. And I was just kind of thinking that it's something we have to create a day, right? That we celebrate fathers and mothers. When we think about the work and the responsibility that comes behind being a parent, it seems like it should be celebrated every single day, because it is a lot of sacrifice to be a parent, to be, an effective parent. And so, really making sure that the children are well taken care of and that they're groomed and guided and all those things. But today is Father's Day, man. This weekend is Father's Day. And so we really want to focus in, man, on just what it means to be a father, in particular, a Black father, right? And some of the challenges that we deal with as men in our role as fathers, right? And so I just want to have some conversation about that today. And then secondly, we want to recognize that this is Juneteenth, and this is important, right? When we think about Juneteenth, we think about the emancipation of Black people, the African Americans, those who were brought over here in slavery and bondage, right? And how they were emancipated according to history. And then it took 2 years for them to even know that they were free, right? And so we want to recognize that today. So that's our focus today. And we want to invite everyone that's listening in. If you're a part of this, chime in, feel free to give us your thoughts, your views, things of that nature, and we're looking forward to really having a live discussion today, right? So, and with that said, I want to jump in and share just a little bit of a clip, man, that really stood out to me. And we'll use this as a way to really begin our conversation today. And so here, give me just a second to pull this up.
A friend of the show, Prentice Powell.
Arsenio, I'm tired of us always having to prove our love to our sons. One of the biggest compliments I get a lot of times is how great of a father I am. You see pictures on the internet. People compliment you a lot because they see photos. And honestly, sometimes I want to tell people, don't tell me I'm a good father when you don't know anything about me. Fun-loving daddy and son pictures on a Facebook page do not equate to instilling values into your child's development. And the fact that I'm Black should be irrelevant when it comes to my ability to raise my son. My skin tone should not make me any better or worse when it comes to the paternal instinct. But because fathers like me are apparently extinct, I get extra praise. And for what? For doing what I'm supposed to do. From strangers. Strangers who don't know, when my son was born, I only got him from 12 noon on Saturdays to 5 p.m. on Sundays, went to the court to get more time, came back with 12 noon on Saturdays to 5 p.m. on Sundays, plus child support, fought for a year, had him for a year and a half, if not more, had him 50% of the time, if not more, only to lose him when he started school to summertime and rotating holidays. So when you see me in the streets with my little one and want to say, it's so good seeing the father doing his job, spending that quality time, don't, because I am being robbed. Robbed of the greatest gift. Forced to live through pictures on an iPhone to recognize the touch of my lips more than they do my fingertips. And the smell of his lotion every day I rub into my skin, so when I smell myself, I think of him. Forced to live through memories that occur within the span of 1 week. Through occasional webcam chats with a child too young to speak back, so when he reaches for you through that camera, all you can say is, son, I miss you too. Or watching your son learn how to ride a bike via Skype at the hands of another man, and even though he is a good man and you are glad he's around, that man is not you. And not letting his mother know that all this is getting to you, so you get up to grab some tissue because at all times, that distance of 3,117.4 miles can feel more like 3 million. Try dropping your son off at the airport with 3 teeth in his mouth, go 4 weeks without him, watch him come back with 5, and see if you don't beat yourself up for not being around during that time. So don't tell me I'm a good father when you don't know anything about me. Try to convince a person that knows nothing about you that you are simply worthy of time. See thousands of people inspired by your story, but still feel that you are getting nowhere. Have people motivated by the pain that sits right here every day inside of your chest, and that same pain being a reflection of the amount of love that you possess. I want you to imagine your newborn baby sleep. You're watching them. Try to get his sleep patterns down pat, praying to God you get it right, because you have one night and have to go 6 days until you get him back. Imagine being able to fly through this world doing what you love to do, but because of a court order, your son before the age of 1 has to fly twice a month, which may mean by the age of 2, he'll have more frequent flyer miles than you. Try never spending a day in your life locked up in prison and still watch your child grow up primarily through photos. Learn about his milestones via text message or Facebook and see if you don't feel numb. So how can I smile when people tell me I'm such a good father when I feel like I'm not giving enough time to actually be one? Raise your son without feeling like you're actually raising him. And although everything in this world doesn't go the way we plan, I can accept that. All that's fine. I just don't understand how a man can be forced to pay half of daycare, half of medical expenses, food, clothes, water, but the same man that laid down to create that child is not automatically given half of the time. Something about that situation is not right. And when I'm done with this poem, I mean this. I don't care if any of you clap. I just want my praise, my kudos, my air, my earth, my water, my drive, my moon, my sun, my baby, my motivation, my son. I just want my chance. I just want my son justice for his power. I want my baby back. Thank you.
Man. Woo.
You can feel his passion throughout that entire speech, poem, spoken word. That's deep. It's real deep.
Yeah, I think, as sad as it is, I think a lot of fathers can resonate with that, in this age. I know I could relate to a lot of what was said, in the early parts of certain aspects of, separation, right? And when I went through my divorce. So, I mean, it was like, my youngest son was 2, right? And we still struggle sometimes with, moving forward with the relationship. He texted me from his brother's phone yesterday. It was like, Gavin doesn't care, but I'd like to come over tomorrow instead of tonight. And so, I try to give him the space and stuff, but I mean, you feel that because that we're still building that bond, right? He's now 10. So, you know what I mean? It's but I had a conversation with my oldest daughter. I said, you're my oldest and your mother's only. I said, you didn't come with instructions. I said, we did the best that we could. We're doing the best that we can. We're not going to always get it right, and at 15, it's, she's formulated certain thought patterns and different things like that. So we're navigating that, you know what I mean? But it really is, it is impactful, and it's something that we don't get to talk about a whole lot. So,
yeah, when we think about this and fatherhood, right? And I know that through this time, you see a lot of memes and posts and things like that. And you see, I put up one where Father's Day, in particular with the African-American community, is probably the least celebrated holiday of any holidays. I think somebody said it was like number 20, and there aren't even 20 holidays throughout the year, right? And so in the African-American community, but we don't think about the challenges with being a father, right? And granted, I know we could say it real easy out of our mouth. You made the child, you need to raise the child. But I like what you said, T. Patrick. When we didn't come with the set of instructions, we didn't come with guidance and things of that nature, then it makes it even challenging. Even for those who had father figures, when you step into the role of a father, there's a lot of responsibility. There's a lot of challenges in our community. Historically, even speaking historically, we were taught how to create children, but we weren't taught how to raise them.
Yeah, you make a valid point, because even though I had my dad, just like you, T. Patrick, me and my oldest mother broke up when she was 18 months. So there's no instructions on that at a young age as far as trying to see your kid, trying to be the best dad that you can be, deal with the structure of your household, worrying about the structure of their household, what they're exposed to. So just that part alone. And then if you're not getting along, can I get my kid? Or no, you can't. Or your child support's behind, or you can't have your kid. You know, it's whatever it is. I don't want you to have my kid. You're going to have some girls around. So it's always something that's like, it makes the guys that are involved in their kids almost want to take a step back because it's like so much is thrown at us. And then something I like that the guy said is that we get praise for doing what we're supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
We know how to make a kid. That's your kid. Don't sit up here and say, man, I got my kids. You're supposed to have your kids.
Yeah.
But I admit, I was in 20, so getting that praise was cool because I guess look young, having your kid with you. But I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. I made this kid. I know how to take responsibility, and I'm around my kid.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Like, even I post a lot of pictures, right? But half of the stuff that we do doesn't even make it to the internet because I don't have time to grab my camera at that point because we're involved in stuff. So my daughter wanted to sleep in my youngest wanted to sleep in my bed, right? I don't know why. She just climbed up in there and went to sleep. So I'm like, whatever. Normally, I'm like, yeah, you three. So now it's time for you to go sleep in another room. But this night, I said, so you go sleep in my bed? She said, yeah. And then next thing I know, she was knocked out. I woke up this morning, her leg wrapped around my neck. And the interesting thing is, I posted another picture of her, of my youngest boy, right? The one that didn't want to come over until today. He did the same thing. Both of his feet is just across my face. You know what I mean? So I'm like, well, and those two are getting close. The youngest boy and Taryn, but he terrorizes her. She terrorizes him. But we're dealing with that. But it's just interesting. Like, most of that, it doesn't make that, make the internet. So I post that, I get a bunch of likes and stuff like that. But I mean, this is just being a father. I mean, I don't post the conversations we have. My son telling me I need to make better life choices at 12. What are you talking about? I like that, son, but let's talk about that a little bit. So, I like how he put that. We do get praise, we do get kudos for that. But to me, it's another day, right? We do need to talk about, though, normalizing good gifts for Father's Day.
Yes.
not a pack of noodles and some socks and some Lay's potato chips. But you know what I mean? I had posted a meme about that. It was funny to me.
Yeah. If you're just joining us with No More Hiding in our podcast, our Manhood Moment podcast, this morning we're going to talk about, and we've been talking about fatherhood, and in particular, the impact of fatherhood in the Black community. So to join us on a great conversation today, I appreciate Brother Billy Price. He's always joining in, and we got some others who are part. So feel free to post your thoughts and we'll shout them out. It looks like Brother Billy said, we're always learning on how to be better fathers. Right now in my life, I'm still working on what I can tell my son and on how he can be that great father to my grandson. So, right. So when we think about it, man, this role as a father never really changes when we have children in our life. And can I really be honest, whether we have biological children or whether we are surrogate fathers, we could be stepfathers, we could be mentors who step up in the role as a father, we could be fathers to the community, right? If we have sons, if we have daughters, this role as a father figure is impactful because it's something about the healthy touch and voice of a man in the community. And so how important it is. And so Brother Billy is talking about, not just a father to his son, who is now a father himself, but a father to his son's son as a grandfather, right? And how important is that? How important it is for us to, recognize just how critical this role is as a father. I'm mindful, even I have together we have 5 grandchildren, and there are 3 that have the last name of Rice. And so being a father, being a grandfather, and really mentoring my sons, because both of them have children, mentoring them at this stage and saying, okay, from where they stand and their understanding of fatherhood, and how important that is for me, because I did not have my biological father died, and my stepfather, who was a great provider, but grew up in that generation where conversation was more like, hey, yeah, you're gonna learn. And it's like, okay, what am I gonna learn? It's like, finish that sentence. I would really like to know now, and so, or it was very little communication in our family when it came from the men. So it was important for me to try to change that dynamic, and how working as a father was critical.
I think what you're saying is where the growth begins, because we're at the point now, like I don't have any grandkids yet, but saying you're in a perfect position that you and your kids can talk and you can explain, I wasn't perfect here, I should have handled this differently. You can have that real adult conversation that's even more positive to their kid, because they'll know what changes to make, what tweaks to do, or just what ways to improve. But that relationship starts to change, that you're the parent, but you start to become a parent almost as an advisor, as far as this is what you should do. But now you can have those real conversations because they're adults, because we're not perfect to our kids.
Yeah, and I mean, there are kind of stages to fatherhood, right? I mean, when we think about it, I mean, if we look at it from a biblical perspective, and Colossians and how it talks about, how to, not, we have to be careful as fathers is how we communicate with our kids. One, because we don't want to discourage them, and we don't realize how impactful sometimes our words, our touch, our or what their experiences are with us, and it's going to shape, how they see things or how they see the world, right, going forward. So it's like, understanding that there is a point where discipline is very important, and then there's a point in which you become a coach. You know what I mean? Where I'm not so much as focused on the discipline, but I'm in the coaching phase. My son's 12, going into his teenage years. So now, I see myself shifting. We do have corrective coaching conversations, as I say in my profession, right? Coaching conversations about certain things, hygiene and stuff. It's not always at the forefront of his mind, right? He forgets stuff, right? But I'm more of a coach now, whereas with the younger ones, I'm more of, okay, we're focused a lot on correction at this point. He's at the point where he already knows. He's saying, I got to make better life choices, right? So at least something's worked at this particular point, where he's thinking about some of the things that he's doing on there. And then when they become adults, you're more like a friend. Like let me give you some good advice. So I mean, I like how that sermon was broken down and kind of explain it in that way. And I was like, wow, let me reevaluate, my rearing process with my children.
It's funny you said that, because I was in my mind, I was thinking, why was it so important? Remember growing up, it was important, like, to make the boy hard. Right, it got to be hard, and we did those things that could, really, make sure that they was going to be tough and can survive and things like that. And even at a young age, right? And how even with our daughters, we want to make sure that they understood that, the different types of men that were out there, and and all those things, right? And oftentimes in our communities and in our homes, we don't get a chance to just sit back and enjoy them, right? Get a chance to sit back and just learn from them and see ourselves in it. Either we're competing with the raising aspect, or we're competing with the provision aspect, because oftentimes we're short, right? We got to work 2 or 3 jobs just to be able to provide for the home. So we're missing events, we're missing opportunities, we're missing just the funness and not even being able to travel the way we want to and explore and share new experiences. No, and I've just been really reflecting on some of the challenges that being a father it entails.
Mm-hmm.
No.
And it's something that, like, just with us being transparent in our manhood moments, how, you know, T-Pat, you talked about like getting all the likes and everything, but it's those moments where we need that brother check-in. Because I used to have, I mean, it's been years ago, but I would have my daughter Friday, take her back Sunday. Don't see her for the next 2 weeks. And on the drive back, you're sad. And nobody's really saying, man, are you all right?
Yes.
Because the brother on the video was tore up. I remember
Yeah.
driving back on the highway, just sad and just depressed because I'm dropping off my daughter. So it's something that needs to be discussed as well.
Yeah, it most certainly does. I mean, you know, with my first daughter, she lived 4 hours away. That's an 8-hour round trip. I was working retail. I was grocery store manager. So I would literally sometimes have to work 10 hours, then get on the highway, drive 8 hours round trip. That's an 18-hour day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, you know, I remember her and me and her mom had some, we had a few, I had shared some strong words like, don't ever do that again, right? She was adamant. I had to cultivate that relationship for the first 7 years of her life, right? I didn't get met halfway. I had to do it all, right?
I walked through shoes.
And it was tough. And nobody really looked at that. I never even talked about it, right? Because that was my responsibility, right? If we're gonna talk about likes, that's the stuff that isn't posted. That you see the pictures of me trying to halfway do her hair or whatever, ponytails flying, all that. That's cute, but no, it was a real commitment. You know what I mean? And for the first time at 15, I said, "Did you know these things?" Right? You know, because she talked about feeling abandoned for a moment when I couldn't do that anymore. I didn't have the financial resources to do everything, and then also make sure that she's here, pay for everything there, plus meet my financial obligations, you know, on that end. I'm like, I gotta cut something at this particular point to live. And so, you know, there was a couple of year period where we didn't see each other as much, you know, but I had to explain that to her, kind of walk through that. So
my daughter jumped on here. She's listening. So she said, Daddy, we remember the ponytails. Because I did my best. Hey, I learned to twist too. Like, hey, look good to me.
Hey, I'm telling
That's the one thing I never mastered was doing the hair.
Hey, I don't know how to braid. You know, in fact, I was talking to my youngest daughter's mom today. She was sending me some instructions on how to do her hair because she did these little puffs. So she's like, before you leave, put some water out there, whatever. And I was like, first of all, I mean, you should have braided her hair before you sent over here to me. But that's neither here nor there, right?
Hey, we got a really good question out here. And so we got one of our viewers, Levada, my wife. She stated, she said, why are fathers having to defend their fatherhood? All right, that's the question, you know. And the second question is, what's the historical construct of having to push to celebrate fathers? So we can tackle one or both or whichever one you want to. It says, you know, why are fathers having to defend their fatherhood? And what's the historical construct of having to push to celebrate fathers?
I think, unfortunately, you just have too many absent fathers. So we're just attacked. And so I'll be honest, I don't really feel attacked too much because I'm gonna handle my business. I know what a father should look like and be like, but I'm gonna have my brother's back too, that this brother's trying the best that he can to try to be a good father. And do you know his story? Do you know if his father was around or grandfather was around? Or if he hasn't seen his kid in so long, he's almost given up, because that's playing with your heart. I don't think people understand as a father, when somebody's keeping your kid from you, that's breaking you down. That is hurting and tearing you up. So I just think that just sometimes like there's like that 80-20 rule where like the 20% gets all the attention. So you have the absentee fathers that are getting, I guess, all the pub, all the talk about. So it lowers, I guess, the shine that we get or deserve. But
yeah, I like that thought, Tony, and you know, a lot, because I think it is, and I think oftentimes in society we tend to focus. I had this conversation with an associate yesterday when I was having an associate engagement. I was happy to get out and see people, and stuck in the house for 6 months. But you know, we talked about how there's a tendency to focus on that 10% that isn't doing what they're supposed to do, right? We manage to that as opposed to managing to the 90%. Now, these aren't scientific, you know, slices, but I think that's why, you know what I mean, that there's so much focus on the guys that aren't doing what they're supposed to, that, you know, those that have separated and are still doing what they are still feel some sort of obligation to justify that, you know what I mean, that I'm not like that 10%, even though we get put into that category. I mean, I struggle with that a lot. Like, some of it was internal guilt. We don't really understand the why behind that, nor do people care. Like, it's just, this is the narrative, and that's what it is. And I'm determined not to be that. So I'm gonna make it plain. I'm gonna do what I'm supposed to do. But then I realized, I say, you know, honestly, no one really cares. I mean, if we get down to it, it's what I'm supposed to do. So that's what I'm gonna do. And whatever struggles I have, you know, I'm gonna have to deal with them as I mature. Like, being young now, it's like, man, why I gotta go through this? But I understand why now.
Yeah, you know, and that's something when we think about it. I believe, and I'm always celebrating this, I believe there are more men who are doing it as a father than there are men who are not doing it as a father. I believe that even those men who may appear not to be doing it as a father, there is a reason other than that man being a deadbeat. I believe there's a barrier. Tony, you talked about it earlier. You know, there are challenges. He himself may be dealing with some emotional or mental challenges himself about his ability to be a good father, his inability to maintain relationships. Because I don't think we realize, man, when we think about fatherhood, we can't disconnect fatherhood from manhood, right? And T. Pastor, you talked about the stages, right? But if we think about the first stage, right, is boyhood, and then the second stage is manhood, and then in between there, you may share fatherhood, right? But if you have some issues in boyhood, or you have some issues in manhood, it's going to impact fatherhood. If you got issues with trust, if you got issues with hurt or childhood hurt, if you have issues with connecting, if you got some emotional, mental issues, all those things are going to impact even our ability to form positive, healthy relationships. Because if we have an inability to form positive, healthy relationships, then chances are we're going to form a negative or not so healthy relationship with a person who we decide to sire a child with. And now that relationship is going to last generationally, because it just don't happen. Those arguments and stuff like that you have in those unhealthy relationships, they metastasize, they get huge when you throw in a child in there.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And so we got to not just think about the place where that man is as a father. We got to think about that place where that man is as a man. And what issues he may be dealing with, and what challenges he may be struggling with. Because I know for myself, feeling rejected as a child carried over into relationships, and then it carried over into my fathering. As a father, if I felt like my kids were not coming close to me or not accepting me, I felt that same rejection, and it caused me to want to protect myself. I want, you know, even though I know these my kids, let me protect myself, because I can't let you hurt me. I can't let you, cause me to feel more pain, not realizing the seed of that pain was from my childhood. And when I started to deal with the seed of that pain from my childhood, now I was able to start to cultivate and feel safe, even if I didn't necessarily feel like my children were necessarily gravitating to me, right? Does that make sense to you?
Yeah,
makes
it makes a lot of sense. And then just kind of piggyback off the generational thing, my oldest brother, he had my nephew when he was young, and my oldest brother really wasn't around. My nephew. Then my nephew has a kid, but growing up, he was talking about the pain he experienced because my oldest brother wasn't around. But my nephew had a kid and ended up doing the exact same thing. So as much as he talked about his dad not being around and things like that, I thought that he would take the opposite effect. But whatever it is about the generational thing, that's what he did to his nephew. And I just think back to, if nobody's showing you how to be a father, if I was that Santa Claus father every year, and that's what my dad did, then my kid may do the exact same thing. That's what fatherhood is. You know, it's Christmas, I'm gonna drop off some gifts.
Mm-hmm.
I knew better than that. I don't want to be the birthday Christmas dad.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Even though I'm not around every day, I'm going to be around as much as I can. But
Yeah.
I knew what it looked like. I knew what it was supposed to kind of look like. But for guys that don't have a father figure, where are they learning from?
Yeah, and I mean, great segue into a thought process that I had, which is that we do what we know, right?
Mm.
I mean, as much as I spent time with my father, but not a lot. And what I looked at is I made some of the same choices, even though, and I look at my life and I'm like, wow, he has four sons. I got 4 children, right?
Mm.
I mean, yeah, though it manifests itself differently. I was married, and such things like that. But still, how much of alike did we become, right?
Yeah.
And so it's really about what do we know, and it was like, okay, now I need to understand what he went through, and my question really is, how well do many people and men in particular, how well do they know themselves?
Yeah.
And I'll say this because I still actively go to counseling from time to time to get tune-ups, right? And my counselor asked me an important question. He said, if I was to ask you who you were, what would you say?
Mm.
And I paused because I don't know. I realize that if I don't separate, if I separate what I do from who I am, I don't know who I am. And that's something I got to think about now. And it just makes me think that how many people are going through life not really knowing. We're with ourselves every day, but we really don't know. And if we really dug into that question, why do we do what we do? Why are we the way that we are? Who are we?
Yeah.
Could they answer that?
That's a good question.
We got a couple comments. It says, when a child does wrong, we as fathers feel we did something wrong or could have been a better teacher, and feel like we need to carry that guilt and that weight. And I'm not saying it's just germane to fathers, because I'm sure mothers feel the same, but we feel that we look back and we try to figure out, what did we do wrong, right? Those who were present and active and really took this responsibility as being a father, seriously, right? As another thought says, fathers get a bad act of not being in their children, get a bad rep of not being in their children's life. It's not easy if not with a significant other, and so, and that's important, having that positive relationship with whether it's a girlfriend, one night stand, whatever the relationship is that created that child, right? And so how important that is. It says, if issues, when we're looking at, I hear some feedback somewhere. Father died, my stepfather relationship. And so it one of the things I think that's critical is making sure that we have that everyday relationship in some shape, form, or fashion. And so, and emphasizing just how important that is. I want to shift just a little bit, man, and I just want to bring in today, our topic, our podcast is not going to be as long as the others, but we wanted to make sure that we hit some very important thoughts. So I want to bring in one other clip that deals with fatherhood.
Because a lot of times I'll hear men say, Bishop said this, Bishop said that, because they are looking for somebody who can lead them in the right path.
Oh, very, very much so. The weight is unbelievable, sometimes unrealistic, but it's very, very important. You know, in the 60s, our pastors filled a void in the country in terms of civil rights. They stepped up to the plate. We didn't have congressmen. We didn't have senators. The pastor had to be everything. The challenge that we have today is a little different, and some of it's more domestic. We need men who can serve as role models, as fathers, speak into the lives of other men, and they need to be men who are willing to show that they are not perfect. Because sometimes when we set ourselves up as perfect models, we alienate the men we seek to serve. We need to be able to say, I'm touched with like passions like you. I've got struggles just like you. I get out of the bed every morning just like you. Sometimes I'm depressed like you. Sometimes things get on my nerves, frustrated with my wife, kick the dog, slap the cat, upset with the kids. I'm a guy. Because if you lift yourself up as Superman, you're not going to be able to draw anybody, number one. Number two, that's not really true. We are people. We are guys. We are people. We are people that God uses, but we are people, you see? And so your strength is in your ordinariness. I tell people that Jesus looked so much like everybody else that Judas had to point him out in the crowd. He wasn't floating through the air. He didn't have halos in there. He looked like a guy. His ordinariness is what drew people toward him. And my prayer is that we'll have more pastors who can sit down and say, you know,
Are you saying you're muted?
The reason why I wanted to bring the reason why I wanted to bring this particular clip up is because as men, we're out there, we're looking for so many different individuals. We're looking for role models. We're looking for leaders ourselves, and feeling like we need to get this thing perfect, right? Feeling like we need to figure it out and be perfect at everything that we do. And although I know Bishop Jakes is talking, the question is centered from a pastoral point of view, but I'm the one that believes that as fathers, we are the pastors, we are the shepherds, we are the protectors, we are the keepers, we are the guiders, we are the providers of our home. We're the first, right? We have, in my view, as being a father, it is like being the governor of a state, because I'm responsible for making sure that it happens in my home, because we know that we have some citizens who are like Missourians, but they may be living in Arkansas. They may be living in California, but their residence is in Missouri. So if I look at it from that viewpoint as a father, regardless of where my children may be living, regardless of the state of where they are, regardless of what's what, they're still in some way my responsibility. There's generations to come. So even the grandchildren, the great-grandchildren I've not met yet and may not meet because of lifespan, but still making sure that it's critical for me to make sure that they are covered, right? And so how important it is to not be Superman, but be vulnerable enough to be just a man who has ordinary challenges, who deals with ordinary issues that's similar to other men that may even be sitting next to me at my job or on the bus or wherever the case is. That's what stood out to me about that. What's your thoughts?
Got a similar thought process. You know, part of I think one of the most important aspects of building trust in any situation, fatherhood, you know, and regular relationships, is the ability to be vulnerable. You know, again, that explains the why behind the what we do. And so I think that, that was an important part that was made, that we're human. We have to be human, and it's okay for our children to see that. There's that stigma that we have to be tough. We got to be. That's a lot of pressure, to carry around when you have that level of responsibility. So, but how else are they going to learn? Are they going to be receptive of the fact that, hey, you can't share everything, obviously, because they're going to take the wrong lesson if you're not careful. But,
It's true.
Sometimes, especially when you enter that coaching phase, where I've been there. I understand what you're going
through. Stephanie Moore, she posted, she's always listens to us. She posted, one of my students told me his daughter told him once again he is abandoning her because he is not getting the COVID vaccine, which means he can't get visits, and she works inside of a prison. And he hasn't seen her in a year and a half because of COVID. He is mentally struggling with this, and the challenges, and me working in the criminal justice, and Tony, you also work in the criminal justice field. We know that there are a lot of men who have children that they're away from their children. In the state system, at least they're within the same state, right? And so they may have to travel an hour or two to go visit, meaning the family, but in the federal system, they could be several states away, depending on where they place them. And so having those challenges, but the idea of abandoning them, right? And his daughter feeling, one thing to hear your son, but it's something to hear your daughter. As a father, man, them daughters, they be pulling on this, and to hear that you abandoning me, I'm sure right now that brother's dealing with, and he's struggling with the thought of, I have my belief system about this whole COVID shot and stuff, but then I got my daughter here, who wants to see me. Can you imagine what she's dealing with?
Yeah,
that's a tough spot. I couldn't imagine that, because not seeing your child for 18 months, that would destroy me.
Yeah, no. My daughter works in a children's psychiatric hospital. She mentions that it's the same issue with those children in the psychiatric hospital, not being able to see their parents or seeing their father. So when we're thinking about these challenges, man, that's out here, related to a father. And this is the thing that we talk about all the time, not just on Father's Day, because for No More Hiding and Manhood Moments, this is what it's my manhood, my mission, right? And how important it is that we emphasize the importance of manhood. We emphasize the importance of fatherhood. We emphasize the importance of growing and healing and all those things that's necessary for us to be a whole man, coming out of hiding, not being afraid, not allowing the mistakes that we made in our past, not allowing the challenges that we've done, any of those things, not even allowing our successes to give us the big head and full of pride, but being that man that's grounded, being that everyday man that's willing to connect with another man and willing to grow from that iron sharpened iron. That's what Manhood Moments is about. That's what No More Hiding is about. That's why we're here, not just for one day, but just every day, every first and third Saturday, we're communicating. We're talking all the time, the three of us, but we allow you all to jump in on our conversations every first and third Saturday. And whoever wants to be a part of it, we invite them to be in here. So, man, we are close to the end, but we also know that today is Juneteenth. And we did not want to leave our podcast today without, having some recognition for Juneteenth and the importance that it has in the African-American culture. Being brought over here in bondage, in slavery, stolen from the land that we knew, and not just stealing individuals who were just your paupers and poor, but they stole scientists, they stole agriculturists, they stole individuals who could help build this country. And then after stealing, in enslaving and in bondage and terrorizing, raping, murdering, assaulting, destroying the structure, destroying the psyche, destroying all these things of the Black family, the Black community, the image and the perspective of the Black people, right? Release them, sign a paper, put in action, the release or the emancipation as it's called, but did not even share that it had happened. And once it was known, they was like, okay, go fend for yourself. No reparations, nothing put in place. So we gotta talk about this stuff, and we're gonna talk about the impact of it, especially on the Black male, because some of the stuff that we're seeing right now with this having all these babies everywhere, that was a part of the process. Wasn't allowing Black men to be able to father, wasn't allowing the family structure to exist, wasn't allowing the man to connect with the woman that he loves, but using that as a pawn. And if you don't do right, then we're gonna break up your family. We're gonna destroy your family. Or you have to produce so many babies, every year with all these different women, right? Buck breaking, where they take a strong Black man and humiliate him in front of the community, either having another man rape him in front of everybody, or castrate him, or beat him, leave him naked, all this stuff. See, that's stuff that we don't talk about. We don't talk about the imagery of, like, when you have the imagery such as Uncle Tom and all these other imageries that was put in when you had the birth of the nation, and how the imagery of the Black man was changed from being this docile servant who loved his master to now this ravenous individual who was lazy, who was slothful, who was going to go out and rape your women and destroy your family, which used that as a platform to emphasize the need for imprisonment and all this. See, this is stuff that happened to Black men in this country. And this is the same stuff that still exists right now. And we don't want to talk about it. We don't want to really have these hard conversations on how do we get this image today. We weren't always these Black men who were not present in homes and stuff. I'm gonna leave this about this. Y'all know how I am. Y'all know I'm passionate about this, man.
And I feel the exact same way. I do respect the holiday, the national holiday, but can we get the critical race theory?
There you go.
In these schools. Then you can examine this, because I just feel like you have Black Lives Matter movement last year. Now we have Juneteenth. White people still Caucasian. Mm-hmm. You guys know what I'm saying. I'm not trying to be disrespectful, yeah. But you got that population of people that look at it as, why y'all having this? Y'all are free. Y'all been free since the 1800s, blah, blah, blah. We didn't own any slaves. And they don't understand it. And they're giving the narrative that slavery wasn't that bad. I've seen little comments about that. And let's have a critical conversation and see where it started from and see why we are the way we are now.
Yeah.
And I like the conversation piece, but I also look at it from an action piece. I had someone posted on Instagram, one of my frat brothers, about our frat brother thing was posting about, okay, well, we got Juneteenth, but what else is happening, right? So the president is going to be running on that in 4 years. Okay, well, yeah. I mean, because it's a federal holiday. I say, but most of the legislative process takes place at the local level. And exactly. we don't look at that. And so we're not even involved locally to really make changes what we want. If you want reparations, you want those things, we got to start putting people running candidates to get into the legislative process, because that's where the purse strings are. That's where the money comes from. President ain't got that type of power. And it's like we went through civics class and we took the notes to pass the test, but we didn't retain the information to deal with that. And so we'll be stuck in the conversation piece, but what are we doing at the local level? So shout out to St. Louis for, electing, the first Black female mayor, right? So,
Mhm.
now we're moving in the right direction, but we got to look at aldermen. We got to look at, the folks in Jefferson City, and how do we get people who are going to represent our interests to help move this forward? Because critical race theory, like, I love how you pointed that out, Tony, but
Mhm.
education is local. It's not national. That's
it.
where it's controlled. And so if we want that to be taught, we got to run school board members that's going to push that in their school district.
Yeah, and we have to put that leadership in the legislative branches locally, where individuals who understand the balance of power, right? And so, because now you're seeing, if we're talking about education, you're seeing the ability to use tax dollars from a community into a private entity.
Mhm.
So now, instead of having those tax dollars, similar to the when we looked at the desegregation project, right? And so how you could cherry pick the best from a community, get them out into that other community, which helped build their tax base, whether it was athletics, whether it's academics, or whether it was arts and sciences, or whatever it was, moving those students out there, winning state championships and having very academically astute students, having them in those communities, help build those communities. Plus they got those tax dollars. So they was taking a portion of the tax dollars that should have been in the Black communities where these students actually live, where they could benefit, where they could really benefit the infrastructure. They wasn't doing that, right? And so now, if we really start to talk about that, or when we really look at curriculum, when we're looking at what's being delivered, you got Juneteenth, and I appreciate that, but we want to restrict critical race theory. We want to restrict the 1619 project. We want to not talk about reparations and how important the reparations are to African Americans who, when you look back on time and you start to research it and really look at things, the Freedmen Bank, you had Black people who were that were almost millionaires, and then they had their money in this Freedmen Bank system, and all of a sudden all the money disappeared. The money was gone. And so you have folks who have worked real hard to come out of that place of poverty, and now in a day, in a week, in a month, in a year, they're back impoverished, which pushes them back economically. See, this is stuff we don't talk about. We've been celebrating Tulsa race riots, but you look throughout history, you still got race riots going on right now.
Yep. And nobody's being convicted.
Man,
But one thing I do want to say, just based off of some of the stuff that you said, Deion Sanders with Jackson State, I love what he's doing, because he's trying to make sure these Power 5 schools aren't getting the best Black athletes that they were. Nah, he's trying to give more to the HBCUs, man. We're gonna see some changes. So let's start getting them top 5, top 10 basketball players to a Howard or someplace like that, because he's bringing in recognition. He's bringing in the TVs. Now you're gonna be on ESPN. So am I gonna go to Duke? Am I gonna go to Howard?
Mhm.
But isn't it bad? These are historically Black colleges. They've been around as old as many of the universities and colleges in this country, right? So isn't it bad that one person who comes with this imagery now all of a sudden becomes the one who is saying that he's doing it? What about the merit that existed at your Howards, at your Hamptons, even at your Harris Stowe here in St. Louis, Missouri, or Lincoln, right? These colleges and historically Black colleges and universities have been producing some of the greatest minds long before he or anybody else took over in the coaching realm.
Yeah, we knew it. We knew it. We were rocking the gear back in the 90s. Not sure what all happened, you know what I mean? But we know, we all know. Yeah. And he's just adding to it. But
we got to move away from this wave mentality.
Yeah.
We got to move away from this. We got to move away from the celebrity mentality. Because quite honestly, quite honestly, the talent is in the young men.
Yeah.
And so, or the young women that are walking those hallways, walking within those buildings, that's enrolling in those schools. It's not the celebrity that's there, right? So myself going into a school, yeah, I add to the space, but the focus shouldn't be on me.
Yeah, and I mean,
and if you pay attention to it though, that's not actually what he's doing though. It's like this, but Dan Cookman. I'm a University of Miami Hurricane fan. They would play them. That's how I would hear a little bit about him. But he's trying to make sure everybody else gets to shine too. So not just Jackson State. He's trying to bring everybody in. But yes, he's a celebrity. He has a popularity and all that. But he can bring that money in to help advance. When these kids are looking at like the workout facilities, they're looking at the gyms, things like that. And hopefully it'll help as far as other academic stuff. But
yeah. And I totally agree. We got to move away from it. But sometimes you got to work in the system that you have, not the system you want, because of the fact that, I got to bring in a quote, right? This rapper that an independent rapper, said something that stuck with me when I heard this years ago. We seemed inclined to praise whatever shine, resulting in humility's loss, battle, and pride. And what that means to me is, we are conditioned to be gravitated towards a Deion Sanders taking over the football program at Jackson State. But how do we use that for the greater good? How do we take our successes as Blacks? Because you're right, Saint. The talent's in the halls. That's where the talent's coming out. But when we graduate, what are we doing? When we get our high-powered job or we get this influence, what do we do to impact the individuals or change the narrative? My grandma, who mentors me, said that she was taught, when you get your opportunity, you reach back and you train 2 to 5 more people just like you to be able to take your place when you get ready to move. And so, we go towards the shine. How do we use that to really make that impact? And I've been challenging myself. How do I use my influence when I go and talk to a lot of different employees across the country in my role? Sometimes I'm not supposed to coach in the. It's not normal for me to coach in the moment. But I had a conversation with a young Black manager who was allowing other people to influence her perception of what was happening. And I said, sometimes you don't really know. I say, but be careful because you're at a pivotal point in your career. Be careful not to let somebody else's experience shape your reality, because she was doing that and drawing conclusions and pulling back from that. And I said, eventually it's going to affect the way that you perform. It's not now, but eventually it was. And it's something she needed to hear in that moment. And I think, honestly, something only she was going to get from me at that particular point. Now, what she does with that is what she does with it, but I try to impart those lessons. And so, I know we need to move away from it, but we might have to find a way to harness it too, while we're in it, so we can move out of it.
Yeah, I mean, this is some critical points, and I, by no shape, form, or fashion, do I want anybody to think that I am hating on prime time in any shape, But my thing is, I see the bigger picture, right? And I see how critical it is. And we got some comments on here. It says, at its height, Eddie Robinson had more players in the pros than any other coach at that time, right? And so when we think about Grambling, and think about the history of Grambling and Eddie Robinson. It says, and then also we had a comment. It says, as a father of a Crimson Tide track athlete, the HBCUs did not acknowledge my son as a potential student athlete.
And let me say this to the man that commented. Deion Sanders said the thing of it is that they thought those coaches didn't think that they could get that kid, so they wouldn't offer him a scholarship. That was a thought behind it. We're not going to get this kid, so we're not going to send him a scholarship. But I can see where you're hoping or wanting them to give you that scholarship or even send you an offer, but they just feel like some of those kids are untouchable or unreachable, and that they wouldn't come. But that was just the feedback that he had. But this is the thing too, is that Gramblin's have more Hall of Famers than a lot of these big known, name schools. So we know where the history is. It's just, I've watched Deion long enough that he has a method to what he tries to do.
And that method is what's in it for me. As we move on,
watch him. Hey, we're gonna have this conversation in some years. Watch it.
You think he gonna be there that long? Okay.
Because he could have went to the pros. He could have went someplace else, but that's where he wanted to be. There's the prime time, but there's the Deion that has a method behind what he did.
Okay.
Have you ever watched like his speeches or anything like that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have. And I always get that what's in it for me, because he likes that limelight. So.
Yeah, I mean, there's a certain part to it.
But I mean, hey, so again, sometimes you got to work with the system you got. I mean, so if his whiffum is, driving that, and his whiffum causes a change in, and what we want to see, maybe that's a benefit. Sometimes I have to tell my leaders that, you know what I mean? Sometimes we have to harness that ambition and drive it to where we need it to go.
Hey, our production manager telling me stop. Our production manager said stop hating. And so you all get a chance to actually sit in and listen to our real conversation, because we don't always agree. Don't think that because we're on here as we're co-hosts that we're always agreeing with one another, because we have varying views. And as men, we have varying views, and that's okay.
That's the beautiful part.
We want to create a space. Yes, we want to create that space where men can share what's on your mind and be transparent about it, and not feel like you gotta just, that you have to just agree to this. You have to agree with everything that's going on, right? So, man, we got one last thing that we want to share with you all, and after that, we're going to give final thoughts, and we'll be done for today. So let me share my screen.
Sometime in the water, sometime in the water, sweet Jesus, He carried me. Sometime in the water, sometime in the water.
The Emancipation Proclamation was signed by President Abraham Lincoln on January 1st, 1863, officially declaring the freedom of over 3.5 million black slaves. However, news didn't make it as far as people would have originally thought. The American Civil War began on April 12, 1861, and 4 long years later, the Confederacy was defeated at the total cost of 620,000 Union and Confederate soldiers as of June 2, 1865. By the time the war ended in 1865, about 180,000 black men had served as soldiers in the U.S. Army. This was about 10% of the total Union fighting force. About 90,000 were former or contraband slaves from the Confederate States. About half of the rest were from the loyal border states, and the rest were free blacks from the North. 40,000 black soldiers died in the war, 10,000 in battle, and 30,000 from illness or infection. During the war, slavery in Texas was relatively unaffected because the state experienced no large-scale fighting or significant presence of Union troops. Many slave owners from outside the Lone Star State viewed it as a safe haven and moved there with their slaves. After the war came to a close in the spring of 1865, with General Granger's arrival in Galveston to announce that the Civil War had ended, signaled freedom for Texas's 250,000 slaves, they had no idea that their freedom had been secured by the government. On June 19, 1865, General Granger made the following announcement, which read as follows: The people of Texas are informed that, in accordance with a proclamation from the Executive of the United States, all slaves are free. This involves an absolute equality of personal rights and rights of property between former masters and slaves, and the connection heretofore existing between them becomes that between employer and hired labor. The freedmen are advised to remain quietly at their present homes and work for wages. They are informed that they will not be allowed to collect at military posts and that they will not be supported in idleness either there or elsewhere. Celebrations broke out among newly freed blacks, although emancipation didn't happen overnight for everyone. On plantations, masters had to decide when and how to announce the news or wait for a government agent to arrive. In some cases, slave owners withheld the information until after harvest season. Even in Galveston, the ex-Confederate mayor flouted the army by forcing the freed people back to work. Those who acted on the news did so at their peril. Many men and women were lynched or shot in their attempts to pursue their newfound freedom. In one extreme case, according to Hayes Turner, a former slave named Katie Darling continued working for her mistress another 6 years. According to Darling, her mistress whipped her after the war just like she did before. Hardly the recipe for a celebration, which is what makes the story of Juneteenth all the more remarkable. Defying confusion and delay, terror and violence, the newly freed black men and women of Texas, with the aid of the Freedmen's Bureau, itself delayed from arriving until September 1865, now had a date to rally around. In one of the most inspiring grassroots efforts of the post-Civil War period, they transformed June 19th from a day of unheeded military orders into their own annual rite, Juneteenth, beginning 1 year later in 1866.
There it is, a little bit of history. Hopefully individuals are taking out the time to really go and look at the history behind Juneteenth and understand the significance to the African-American culture. And so, man, this has been a great podcast today. T. Patrick, give us some final thoughts, man. What's on your mind?
Hey, final thoughts is just really happy Father's Day, fellas. You deserve it. Like I say, even if you get socks, I saw Stephanie say the socks are a staple of life. So I'm with that. You know, I had a comment about socks the other day. Where exactly do they go? They just seem to fall off the earth. So they are important gifts. You know what I mean? But anyway, enjoy your day, fellas. You know, I had fun having this discussion. You know what I mean? So as always, you know, keep doing your work.
Good deal, good deal. T. Bird, what's going on? Give us some final thoughts, man.
I'm gonna piggyback off T. Patrick. Happy Father's Day to all the fellas out there. And also, I'm gonna leave a quote just for you, Saint. I was watching I Am Athlete, Deion Sanders was on there. And this just for the guys. I mean, it's a good quote, but Deion Sanders said, watch who you choose as a role model, because you have models out here playing a role. So find you a father, a mentor, somebody you can talk to, and make sure they're about their business. And just for the fathers, man, just understand that we're human, we're ordinary. We looked at as Superman, but acknowledging you're not perfect, you make mistakes, it takes that cape off that you're just another human being. We have our good days and bad days.
That's it, man. That's it. I appreciate that. And I, as I said, you know, Deion has done some good things, you know, so we will see. Life has its way.
Messing with you, brother.
You know, so we want to make sure we tell everyone that has taken out the time to be with us today. We have Stephanie, of course, and we got Yolanda, we got Brother Brady Odom, we got the Widowmaker, one of our good brothers who came in, and he was a part of our conversations about 2 podcasts ago, and so and had a really awesome tournament turnout. What he does is he hosts a tournament between the Greeks and Masonic lodges, and I think they raised, somewhere, I can't even count the number of cases of canned goods, and they give each young man a Foot Locker in preparation for him going to college. And so his focus is working with young men. He's an awesome Mason, an awesome member of Omega Psi Phi. So we want to give a shout out for everything that he's doing in the community. Also, Brother Odom, who's in Springfield, Illinois, got a chance to meet him, and my good friend, best friend, brother. We're more than friends, with brothers, Billy Price, and just everybody, man, that's a part of this. I'm thankful for our production manager, and the one who helps us and keeps us on track, and keeps my life on track. And so my wife, and she's behind the scene and everything that's happening today. So real quick, those who are listening to this, happy Father's Day. We know that being a father is very challenging. We know that it comes with this share of issues and shares of ups and downs, and sometimes it seems to be a thankless position. Real quick, my daughter who listened in, I gotta give a shout out for her for being on there today. And so, but sometimes it feels like being a father is a thoughtless or thankless role, but it really isn't. So I want to encourage the men who are listening in, who may be listening now or listening later, maybe 5 years down the road, you may hear this podcast. What you're doing is so critical, right? Don't allow anybody to remove you from your role as a father. Don't allow the system to dictate when you're going to see your children. You make that a priority. If it means that you got to get in there and fight for your rights, if it means you got to get in there and get the right legal representation, whatever it means, you be present in your child's life. And you show that child, because more than money, the best thing you can give is your time, right? And a lot of men don't realize that, but give your time. You give your time, give your best time off the top to your children, be it those events at the school, be it those events for the games, be it those events to sit down in those moments, maybe when tears might be falling or hurt may be there. You be at those critical moments. You got those sons that's going through puberty, help him understand the growth of his body and the transitions, his voice and the hair and all those things that's coming on him. If you got that daughter who's starting to go through her own puberty and dealing with menstruals and stuff like that, don't be afraid of that. Talk about it. Talk about it from a father's point of view, right? Go to those baseball games, and if you cannot afford to go to those baseball games, then you go to the park yourself and you make your baseball game. If you can't afford to go out to Ruth Chris and places like that, then you go to McDonald's and you all share some fries and a burger. But you do what you have to do to be that man. Because as you stand there and you stand in the gap and you show what their heritage is, you show them the root of their lives, then you're changing not just the lives of your children, but also the community. You're changing the generations to come. So I'm going to say, man, keep going. Don't give up. Don't throw in the towel. Get through it. These pains and these struggles ain't going to last always. Father, we thank you. We praise you. We glorify you for just being here. Ask that you would continue to bless the men that are listening in and those who love the men that are in their lives. We thank you for manhood moments. We thank you for everything that you're doing. We ask that you would encourage this weekend and those who cannot be with their children. We ask that you would touch those men who are incarcerated, that you would bless those men who are hospitalized, or those who have to work that cannot be there to celebrate. Lord, we know that you're raising up men. We know that you are strengthening men, you're healing men. So that's why we're here. We're here to do your work and have an impact in our communities everywhere that we go. And so we thank you for that. We bless your name. Man, remember today, gentlemen, my manhood, my mission. We're looking forward to seeing you again every first and third Saturday here live, whether it's Facebook Live, Instagram Live, whether it's on Twitch. We just joined Twitch and we're working on some other avenues, and then also on YouTube. So we're looking forward to joining you there. So until next time, we will talk to you. Be blessed, brother.